The space station floated in the darkness like a jewel made of light. It was called Ethos Prime, and it was the heart of the Galactic Concord. 12 alien species had built it together over thousands of years. They believed it was the center of civilization itself. They believed nothing important happened in the galaxy without their permission. Admiral T stood at the window of his shuttle and watched the station grow larger. He was an old man now, with gray hair and deep lines on his face, but his eyes were sharp and his back was straight. He had fought in 3 wars and buried too many soldiers to count. He knew what battle looked like. He knew what death smelled like. And he knew, deep in his bones, that today would change everything. Behind him, Dr. Una checked her notes for the 100th time. She was younger than the Admiral, with kind eyes and a soft voice, but her mind was sharp as a blade. She had spent 20 years studying the aliens of the Conquered. She knew their languages, their customs, and their secrets. She knew they looked down on humans. She knew they thought Earth was a death world, a planet of monsters and madness. She knew they would never respect humanity. Not really. "They will try to insult us," she said quietly. "They always do." Admiral T did not turn from the window. "Let them." The shuttle docked with a gentle bump. The doors opened and a wave of cold air rushed in. The station was kept at temperatures comfortable for the conquered species. For humans, it felt like standing in a freezer. Admiral T did not shiver. He would not give them that satisfaction. 2 alien guards waited for them. They were tall and thin, with blue skin and large black eyes. They looked at the humans the way a person might look at insects. One of them spoke in a flat, buzzing voice. "Follow, the High Arbiter waits." They walked through long corridors made of smooth white metal. Other aliens passed them and all of them stared. Some whispered to each other. Some laughed. Admiral T kept his eyes forward and his face calm. He had been stared at his whole life. He had been laughed at by enemies who were now dust. He could handle a few more laughs. The grand chamber was enormous. The ceiling rose so high that it disappeared into shadow. 12 great chairs surrounded a central platform, and in each chair sat a representative of one of the conquered species. They were all different shapes and sizes. Some had scales. Some had feathers. Some had no faces at all, just smooth surfaces that somehow conveyed contempt. At the highest chair sat High Arbiter Vel. He was the leader of the conquered, chosen by the 12 species to speak for them all. He was small by alien standards, with gray skin and 4 thin arms. His eyes were the color of old blood, and they held no warmth at all. "The humans have arrived," Vel said. His voice echoed through the chamber. "How amusing." Admiral T stepped onto the central platform. He stood alone, facing the 12 chairs. He did not bow. He did not kneel. He simply stood like a mountain refusing to move. "High Arbiter," he said, "I come on behalf of Earth and all human colonies. We seek full membership in the Galactic Concord. We seek equal standing with all other species. We seek the rights that have been denied to us for 300 years. Silence fell over the chamber. Then slowly Vel began to laugh. It was not a pleasant sound. It was cold and hollow, like wind blowing through a dead forest. "Equal standing," Vel repeated. "You, Death World primitives, creatures who evolved on a planet of poison and violence, you dare to ask for equality with us." The other representatives joined in the laughter. The sound filled the chamber and pressed against Admiral T like a physical weight, but he did not move. He did not blink. "We have earned it," he said. "We have paid your tributes. We have followed your laws. We have done everything you asked. For 300 years we have been patient." Vel leaned forward in his chair. His red eyes gleamed with cruel amusement. "Patient? You have been obedient. There is a difference. A trained animal can be obedient. That does not make it civilized." Dr. Una, standing at the edge of the platform, felt her hands tighten into fists. She had known the aliens were arrogant. She had known they looked down on humans. But hearing it spoken so openly, with such casual contempt, made her blood burn. "We are not animals," Admiral T said. His voice was still calm, but there was something dangerous underneath it now, something cold and sharp. Vel waved one of his four hands dismissively. Of course you would say that. Every beast believes itself to be special, but look at your world, look at your history, war after war, death after death. You kill each other for sport. You poison your own air and water. You are creatures of chaos and destruction. The conquered has allowed you to exist out of mercy. You should be grateful. Admiral T said nothing. He simply waited. Vel seemed disappointed by the lack of reaction. He wanted the human to beg, or to scream, or to cry. He wanted to see the primitive creature break. When that did not happen, he decided to push harder. Perhaps, Vel said slowly, we have been too kind. Perhaps we have given you too much freedom. Perhaps you have forgotten your place. He stood from his chair and looked down at the Admiral with open disgust. Kneel. The word hung in the air like poison. Kneel before this council, Vel continued. Show your gratitude for being allowed to breathe conquered air. Show your respect for your betters. Kneel, and perhaps we will consider your request. Every eye in the chamber was on Admiral T. The alien representatives leaned forward, eager to see the Deathworlder submit. They had seen other species break before. They had seen proud warriors crawl on their bellies for the chance to join the conquered. They expected the same from the human. Admiral T looked at Vel for a long moment. Then he looked at each of the 12 representatives, one by one. His face was as hard as stone. No, he said. Vel blinked. Excuse me. I said no. Admiral T's voice was quiet, but it filled the chamber like thunder. We kneel to no one, not to you, not to anyone. We are not your animals. We are not your servants. We are human beings, and we bow to no creature in this galaxy. Vel's face twisted with anger. You dare refuse. You understand what this means. You will be cast out. You will be alone. The conquered will crush you. Admiral T turned his back on the High Arbiter. It was the greatest insult possible in conquered culture, and he knew it. He began to walk toward the exit, and Dr. Yuna fell into step beside him. You are making a terrible mistake, Vel called after them. You cannot win against us. You are nothing. You are dust. Admiral T stopped at the door. He did not turn around. We are survivors, he said. We have survived everything our world threw at us. We have survived ice ages and plagues and wars that killed millions. We have survived ourselves, and we will survive you. He walked out of the chamber, and the doors closed behind him. The conquered representatives sat in stunned silence. No one had ever spoken to them that way. No one had ever refused them. No one had ever turned their back on the High Arbiter. On the shuttle back to the fleet, Admiral T sat alone in his cabin. He opened a secure channel to Earth Command. His face was calm, but his heart was beating fast. This is Admiral T, he said. The talks have failed. The conquered has refused our petition. They have chosen to treat us as slaves. He paused and took a deep breath. Activate Protocol Omega. It is time. The message was sent. Across human space, in hidden shipyards and secret bases, lights began to turn on. Engines began to warm. Weapons began to charge. 300 years of planning, 300 years of patience, 300 years of swallowed pride were about to bear fruit. The Galactic Conquered did not know it yet, but they had just awakened something they could not stop. Something born of fire and hardship. Something that would not kneel. War was coming, and humanity was ready. Deep in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, something was happening that the Galactic Conquered had never imagined possible. Rocks that had floated in silence for billions of years were coming to life. Massive doors hidden in their surfaces were sliding open. Lights were flickering on in caverns that had been dark for decades. Ships were emerging from their hiding places like predators waking from a long sleep. Captain Hana stood on the bridge of the Iron Will and watched the fleet assemble. She was a small woman with short black hair and eyes that could cut through steel. She had commanded this ship for 10 years, and she knew every bolt and wire in its body, but she had never seen anything like this. "How many?" she asked quietly. Her first officer checked his screens. 412 warships, Captain, and more are still coming." Hana shook her head in disbelief. The official count of human military vessels was less than 50. That was what the conquered believed. That was what they had allowed. For 3 centuries, humanity had pretended to be weak and helpless, building only the minimum fleet needed for basic defense. The truth was very different. Admiral T's shuttle docked with the Iron Will an hour later. He walked onto the bridge looking tired but determined. Hana saluted him sharply. "Admiral on deck," she announced. T waved away the formality. "No time for that, Captain. We have work to do." He looked at the view screen where hundreds of ships were forming into battle groups. "Is the fleet ready?" "Almost, sir. Lieutenant Wu is running final weapons checks now." As if on cue, a young man appeared at the weapons station. Lieutenant Wu was barely 30 years old, with a thin face and nervous hands. But those hands could operate a weapons console faster than any computer. He had been born with a gift for destruction, and the military had trained him well. "All plasma cannons are online, Admiral," Wu reported. "Missile tubes are loaded. Point defense systems are active. We are ready to fight." T nodded. "Good. What about the new systems?" Wu smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "The reverse-engineered conquered tech is working perfectly. Our shields are now 40% stronger than theirs. Our cannons fire 3 times faster, and our engines can outrun anything they have." This was the heart of Protocol Omega. For 300 years, humanity had been forced to buy technology from the conquered at outrageous prices. They had been forbidden from developing their own. But the conquered had made a mistake. They had assumed humans were too stupid to understand alien technology. They were wrong. Every piece of conquered tech that entered human space was secretly studied, taken apart, and improved. Human scientists worked in hidden laboratories, finding weaknesses that the aliens had never noticed. Human engineers built better versions that the conquered could not imagine. Human workers assembled these improvements in shipyards that officially did not exist. The result was a fleet that should not exist. A fleet that was faster, stronger, and more deadly than anything the conquered had ever faced. Dr. Yuna arrived on the bridge carrying a tablet. She had spent the journey back from Ethos Prime analyzing everything she knew about the conquered. Now she was ready to share her findings. "The conquered has never fought a real war," she began. "Not in over 1,000 years. They have threatened smaller species. They have bullied races into submission. But they have never faced an enemy willing to fight back." "What about their military?" Hana asked. "Large but soft. Their soldiers train in comfortable environments. Their ships are designed for intimidation, not combat. They have bigger guns and thicker armor, but they do not know how to use them." Yuna pulled up images on her tablet. "Look at their formation patterns. They are beautiful and organized, perfect for parades, terrible for actual battle." Admiral T studied the images carefully. "Their weakness is their arrogance." "Exactly. They believe they cannot lose because they have never lost. When we hit them hard and fast, they will not know how to respond." Sergeant D arrived next, filling the doorway with his massive frame. He was the commander of the ground forces, and he looked like he had been carved from stone. His voice was surprisingly soft for such a large man. "My soldiers are ready, Admiral. 20,000 troops in dropships plus armor and support units. We can take any planet they have." "We will not be taking planets," T said. "Not at first. We hit military targets only. We show them we can destroy them, but we choose not to. That will frighten them more than anything else." Sergeant D nodded slowly. He understood. The goal was not revenge. The goal was respect. And respect came from showing strength while exercising restraint. Admiral T called a meeting of all ship captains via hologram. Hundreds of blue figures appeared on the Iron Will's bridge, filling the space with flickering light. These were the commanders who would lead humanity's first real war against the galaxy. They deserved to know why. For 300 years, T began, we have been treated as less than nothing. We have been called animals, primitives, Deathworlders. We have paid tribute for the privilege of existing. We have watched our children grow up believing they were inferior to every other species in the galaxy. He paused, letting the words sink in. Today that ends. Today we stop pretending. Today we show the conquered what humanity really is. We are not their pets. We are not their servants. We are the children of a world that tried to kill us every single day, and we survived. We are the descendants of people who crossed oceans in wooden boats, who climbed mountains with their bare hands, who walked on the surface of the moon. We are stubborn and we are strong, and we do not give up. The holographic captain stood straighter. Their eyes burned with pride. The conquered thinks they know war. They do not. They have never been hungry. They have never been cold. They have never watched their families die and sworn to keep fighting anyway. They have never known what it means to have nothing left to lose. T's voice grew harder. We will teach them. We will hit their border stations first. We will destroy their defense platforms. We will push deep into their space, and we will not stop until they understand one simple truth. We are their equals, and if they do not treat us as equals, we will make them regret it for 1,000 years. The captains cheered. The sound was thunderous, even through the holograms. Far away on Ethos Prime, Emissary Kell was having trouble sleeping. He was a young diplomat, barely more than a child by conquered standards. He had been in the Grand Chamber when the human admiral refused to kneel. He had seen something in the man's eyes that frightened him, something old and patient and very, very dangerous. Kell had tried to warn the others. He had sent messages to High Arbiter Vel explaining that humans were not like other species. They came from a world of constant danger. They had evolved to fight, to survive, to never give up. They were not animals. They were predators. Vel had ignored him. The High Arbiter was too proud to listen to a junior diplomat. Now Kell sat in his quarters, monitoring long-range sensors. He was not supposed to have access to military channels, but he had friends in the Defense Ministry. What he saw made his blood run cold. Human ships were moving, hundreds of them. They were forming into attack groups and heading toward conquered space. Their speed was impossible. Their numbers were impossible. Everything about this was impossible. Kell opened a priority channel to the High Arbiter's office. Sir, you must listen to me. The humans are coming. They have a fleet, a real fleet, hundreds of warships. They are not running away. They are attacking. Vel's voice was annoyed. That is impossible. The humans have no fleet. We would have known. Check the sensors yourself, sir, please. They will be at the border in less than 2 days. There was a long silence. Then Vel spoke again, and this time there was a hint of uncertainty in his voice. Even if this is true, it does not matter. They are animals. They will scatter at the sight of our armada. Send Commander Aura to the border with 60 ships. That will be more than enough to crush this little rebellion. The channel closed. Kell stared at the screen in despair. 60 ships. Vel was sending 60 ships against hundreds. He still did not understand. He still thought the humans were weak and stupid. He still believed the conquered could not lose. Kell looked at the sensor data again. The human fleet was moving in perfect formation, every ship exactly where it should be. There was no hesitation, no confusion, no fear. These were not animals. These were warriors. And they were coming. The Yilo's system was supposed to be a fortress. 3 orbital defense platforms circled the planet, each one bristling with weapons. A shipyard hung in high orbit, producing new warships for the conquered fleet. And Commander Aura had arrived with 60 of the finest vessels in the galaxy, confident that this would be more than enough to crush the human rebellion. Aura was a veteran of 100 conflicts. He had used that word carefully because the conquered did not believe in war. War was for primitives. Civilized species simply demonstrated their power until the enemy surrendered. It was cleaner that way, more elegant. He stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Truth, and watched the sensor displays with casual interest. The human fleet was approaching. 380 vessels, according to the latest count. More than he had expected, but size was not everything. His ships were larger and better armed. His crews were trained professionals. This would be over quickly. Signal the human fleet, Aura ordered. Tell them they have one chance to surrender. If they power down their weapons and submit to arrest, we will be merciful. The message was sent. There was no reply. Aura smiled. They are afraid. They know they cannot win. Prepare to fire warning shots across their formation. That should scatter them. The conquered ships moved into their standard intimidation formation. It was beautiful, Aura thought. Perfect lines, perfect spacing, perfect discipline. This was how a civilized military behaved. The humans would see this display and understand their hopelessness. On the iron wheel, Captain Hana watched the conquered fleet arrange itself. She almost felt sorry for them. Almost. They are lining up like targets at a shooting range, Lieutenant Wu observed. Then let us not disappoint them, Admiral. Admiral T stood at the back of the bridge, his hands clasped behind his back. His face was calm, but his eyes were burning. All ships, he said into the fleet channel. This is Admiral T. We have trained for this moment our entire lives. Our parents trained for it. Our grandparents trained for it. 10 generations of humanity have waited for this day. Do not waste it. He paused. Attack pattern Omega, execute. The human fleet moved, but it did not move the way the conquered expected. Instead of forming nice, neat lines, the ships scattered in what seemed like chaos. Small frigates raced ahead while larger cruisers held back. The iron will plunged straight into the center of the formation, drawing fire from a dozen conquered ships. Aura was confused. What are they doing? This is madness. They have no formation at all. Sir, one of his officers said nervously, they are moving too fast. Our targeting computers cannot keep up. Then fire manually, hit something. The conquered ships opened fire. Their plasma cannons were massive, capable of destroying a small moon, but the human ships were not where they were supposed to be. They twisted and turned at impossible angles, slipping between shots like fish in water. Lieutenant Wu did not use the targeting computer. He did not need it. His hands flew across the console, making tiny adjustments based on instinct alone. He had spent his whole life learning to predict where enemies would be, not where they were. Firing, he said calmly. 3 bolts of plasma screamed across space. 3 conquered cruisers exploded. Their shields, designed to stop direct hits, could not handle the precise strikes that slipped through gaps in their coverage. Aura stared at the explosions in disbelief. 3 ships gone in seconds. That was impossible. The humans were primitives. They were supposed to run. Return fire, he screamed. All ships concentrate on the lead vessel. Dozens of conquered cannons turned toward the iron will. Captain Hana saw them coming and smiled. Wu, give me a shield rotation. Pattern 7. Yes, Captain. The iron will's shields flickered, shifting their strength from point to point just as the enemy fire arrived. Shots that should have destroyed them glanced off at angles. Energy that should have overloaded their systems dissipated harmlessly into space. How, Aura whispered, how are they doing this? The answer was simple. Humans had studied conquered shields for centuries. They knew exactly how they worked, and they knew exactly how to beat them. The conquered had never bothered to study human technology. Why would they? Humans were just animals. Now those animals were teaching them a lesson. While the conquered fleet focused on the iron will, smaller human frigates raced around the flanks. They targeted shield generators, engine systems, and weapon mounts. They did not try to destroy the enemy ships. They simply crippled them, leaving them floating helplessly in space. One conquered captain panicked and tried to retreat. His ship broke formation, turning its vulnerable engines toward the enemy. A human destroyer pounced on him immediately, shredding his propulsion system with precise fire. Within seconds, he was drifting dead in space. The sight of that retreat broke something in the conquered fleet. Other ships began to waver. Their formations fell apart. Officers shouted conflicting orders. Nobody knew what to do because nobody had ever taught them what to do when the enemy fought back. Admiral T watched the chaos unfold with grim satisfaction. "This is what happens when you mistake comfort for strength," he said quietly. "This is what happens when you forget what fear feels like." On the Eternal Truth, Commander Aura was surrounded by fire and death. His flagship was taking hits from 3 different directions. Damage reports flooded in faster than he could read them. Half his escorts were gone, and the other half were running. "We must retreat," his first officer urged. "We cannot win this." Aura wanted to argue. He wanted to believe that the conquered could not lose to primitives, but the evidence was burning all around him. "Signal the retreat," he said, his voice hollow. "All ships fall back to the secondary position." The order went out, but many ships did not receive it. Their communications were jammed by human electronic warfare. They died without ever knowing they had been given permission to run. The battle lasted 2 hours. In that time, the human fleet destroyed 34 conquered warships and crippled a dozen more. They lost 7 of their own vessels. 7. Captain Hana brought the Iron Will alongside the disabled Eternal Truth. The conquered flagship was dark and silent, its weapons dead and its shields gone. Aura stood on his ruined bridge, staring at the human ship through a cracked viewport. "Open a channel," Hana ordered. Aura's face appeared on the screen. He looked like a man who had seen a ghost. His eyes were wide and empty. His hands were shaking. "Commander Aura," Hana said, "this battle is over. Your fleet is destroyed. You have 2 choices. Surrender and be treated as prisoners of war, or continue fighting and die. Choose." Aura swallowed hard. Pride battled with survival in his eyes. "You cannot do this," he whispered. "You are primitives, you are animals. This is not possible." Hana leaned forward. "We are not primitives, we are survivors. Our world tried to kill us every day and we survived. Our own history tried to kill us and we survived. The galaxy looked at us and saw weakness and we survived that too. We have survived worse than you, Commander, much worse." She stood up straight and met his eyes. "Now choose." Aura lowered his head. "I surrender." The word was broadcast across all conquered frequencies. Every ship, every station, every planet in the sector heard their commander admit defeat, heard him say the impossible words, heard him surrender to the Deathworlders. On Ethos Prime, High Arbiter Vel received the news in his private chambers. His 4 hands trembled as he read the report. 34 ships destroyed. Commander Aura captured. The human fleet advancing deeper into conquered space. His assistant asked if he wanted to send reinforcements. Vel did not answer. For the first time in his long life, he did not know what to say. The animals had won. The primitives had beaten them. Everything he believed about the universe had been wrong. And the humans were still coming. Far away, on the bridge of the Iron Will, Admiral T allowed himself a small smile. "One battle," he said. "One battle does not win a war, but it is a good start." Captain Hana nodded. "What are your orders, Admiral?" T looked at the star map. Hundreds of systems stretched before them, each one a piece of the conquered's power. "We keep going," he said. "We push deeper. We show them this was not luck. We show them this was not a mistake. We show them exactly what we are." He turned to face the crew. "We show them what happens when you push humanity too far." The fleet moved forward, leaving the burning wreckage of Yelos behind. The first blood had been drawn, but there was more to come, much more. The news of Yelos spread through the conquered like fire through dry grass. For the first time in 1,000 years, the great civilization was afraid. The impossible had happened. Primitives had defeated them. Animals had made them bleed. Admiral T pushed the fleet deeper into conquered territory, but he did not burn everything in his path. He did not kill civilians. He did not destroy cities. He was careful, precise, and terrifying in his restraint. They struck military bases first. Defense platforms around key systems were reduced to floating debris in hours. Shipyards were captured, not destroyed, their valuable equipment preserved for future use. Command centers were targeted with surgical precision, eliminating leaders while leaving workers unharmed. Dr. Yuna monitored the conquered communications and reported to Admiral T every day. The aliens were confused and frightened. They had expected savagery from Deathworlders. They had expected blood and fire and endless destruction. Instead, they found discipline and control. "They do not understand us," Yuna explained. "Their history tells them that violent species are mindless beasts. They cannot comprehend that we choose when to destroy and when to spare." "Good," T replied. "Let them wonder. Let them fear what we might do. The imagination is crueler than any weapon." The agricultural world of Navis was next on the list. It was one of the Conquered's most important planets, producing food for dozens of systems. If it fell, billions would go hungry. The Conquered expected the humans to bomb it from orbit, to poison the fields and starve the population. Sergeant D had other plans. He led 20,000 soldiers in dropships down through the atmosphere. The planet's defense force was small, just a few thousand local guards who had never seen real combat. They assembled at the main spaceport, ready to fight to the death. D walked out to meet them alone. He was a giant among humans, and humans were already larger than most conquered species. The alien guards looked at him with wide, terrified eyes. Their weapons shook in their hands. "I am Sergeant D of the Earth Defense Force," he said. His voice was calm and almost gentle. "I am here to accept your surrender." The alien commander stepped forward. He was brave, D had to admit, brave and foolish. "We will never surrender to primitives," the commander declared. "We will die before we let you take our world." D nodded slowly. "I understand, but let me show you something first." He raised one hand and made a signal. Behind him, 100 human soldiers emerged from concealment. They had been there the whole time, hidden in the rocks and shadows, completely invisible to the alien sensors. Their weapons were aimed directly at the defense force. But that was not what made the aliens freeze in terror. The human soldiers were wearing light armor designed for Navis's atmosphere. That atmosphere was toxic to most conquered species. The air was thick with chemicals that would burn their lungs and blind their eyes. The local guards could only survive because of special breathing equipment. The humans were not wearing any breathing equipment. They were breathing the poison like it was fresh mountain air. "Your world is poison to most species," D said calmly. "To us, it is only mildly uncomfortable. We have walked through worse on our training grounds. We have breathed worse in our cities. Your death world is our vacation spot." He stepped closer to the alien commander. "Now you can fight us. You will lose. Your soldiers will die and we will take this planet anyway. Or you can surrender and everyone goes home alive. Your families will be safe. Your farms will keep producing. Nothing will change except the flag that flies over your government buildings." The commander looked at his troops. They were young, most of them. They had families. They had lives. They did not want to die for a war they could not win. His weapon clattered to the ground. "We surrender," he said. Navis fell without a single shot fired. The farms kept producing. The civilians kept living. And the conquered learned something new about the Deathworlders. They could destroy, but they chose mercy. This scared them more than anything else. On Ethos Prime, the council was in chaos. Representatives screamed at each other, blaming everyone for the disaster. Some demanded immediate surrender. Others called for every ship in the Concord to be mobilized. High Arbiter Vel sat in his chair and said nothing. He had been so certain, so absolutely sure that humans were inferior. Now his certainty had crumbled to dust. His fleet was broken. His territory was shrinking. His reputation was destroyed. Emissary Kell watched the chaos from a corner of the chamber. He had tried to warn them. He had begged them to listen, but pride had deafened them to the truth. Now there was only one thing left to do. He slipped out of the chamber and made his way to a secure communications room. His hands trembled as he entered the encryption codes. What he was about to do was treason. If Vel found out, he would be executed. But if someone did not act, the entire Concord would burn. The signal went out across space, bouncing through hidden relay stations until it reached the human fleet. Dr. Yuna received it in her quarters aboard the Iron Will. She read the message 3 times to make sure she understood. Then she ran to find Admiral T. "The Concord wants to talk," she announced, breathless. "Someone named Emissary Kell. He is requesting secret peace negotiations." T raised an eyebrow. "A trap." "I do not think so. Kell is young, and his file says he argued against dismissing our petition. He was in the Grand Chamber when you refused to kneel. I think he genuinely wants to end this before more people die." The Admiral considered this carefully. The human fleet was winning, but it could not win forever. Supplies were limited. Reinforcements were weeks away. If the Conquered found its courage and counterattacked with full force, the war could drag on for years. "We will talk," T decided, "but we will not stop advancing. I want our ships within striking distance of the conquered homeworlds before any peace is signed." The fleet pushed forward. System after system fell. Some fought and lost. Others surrendered immediately. The Conquered's great civilization, untouched by war for 1,000 years, was crumbling. Dr. Yuna began secret communications with Emissary Kell. They spoke for hours each day, negotiating terms and conditions. Kell was desperate and eager. He offered everything the humans had originally asked for: full council membership, equal rights, return of all tributes. Yuna reported to Admiral T after each conversation. "He is sincere," she said, "but he does not have authority to promise anything. The High Arbiter still controls the Council." "Then we need to make the High Arbiter listen." The fleet reached the Lyra system, just 3 jumps from Ethos Prime itself. The Concord's capital was now within reach. Human warships could strike the heart of alien civilization in less than a day. Admiral T ordered the fleet to hold position. The ships formed a massive formation, visible on every sensor in the sector. They did not advance. They did not attack. They simply waited. The message was clear: we can destroy you whenever we choose. On Ethos Prime, Vel received reports every hour. The human fleet was so close now, so terribly close. He could order an attack, but he had no ships left to attack with. He could call for allies, but none of the other species wanted to fight Deathworlders. He was alone. His assistant entered with yet another message. "High Arbiter, the human admiral is broadcasting on open channels. He wishes to speak with you." Vel closed his eyes. He had dreamed of many things in his long life. He had never dreamed of this moment. "Put him through." Admiral T's face appeared on the screen. He looked tired but calm. Behind him, the bridge of the Iron Will hummed with quiet activity. "High Arbiter Vel," T said, 3 weeks ago you asked me to kneel. Today I am asking you to do something much easier. I am asking you to be reasonable." Vel's 4 hands gripped the arms of his chair. "What do you want?" "You know what we want. We wanted it from the beginning. Equal standing, respect, the right to exist without paying for the privilege. You could have given us these things peacefully. You chose to insult us instead. T leaned forward. Now we are here at your doorstep with the power to burn everything you have built, and I am offering you a choice. You can negotiate in good faith, or you can watch your civilization fall. There will not be a third option. Vel wanted to refuse. He wanted to scream defiance and die fighting. But he looked around and saw the fear in his assistant's eyes. He thought of the billions of citizens who depended on him. He thought of the children who would die in the fires of war. His pride was not worth their lives. "Very well," he said, his voice hollow. "We will negotiate." T nodded. "I will send my representatives to Ethos Prime within 12 hours. Do not try anything foolish, High Arbiter. We have come too far to turn back now." The screen went dark. Vel sat alone in the silence, wondering how everything had gone so wrong. He had been so sure of his superiority, so absolutely certain that the universe had placed his species above all others. Now a Deathworlder had proven him wrong, and there was nothing he could do except accept it. Far away, Captain Hana allowed herself a rare moment of hope. The war was almost over, not through destruction, but through strength tempered by wisdom. They had proven themselves without becoming the monsters the galaxy expected them to be. "Is it really ending?" Lieutenant Wu asked quietly. Hana watched the stars and thought about all the soldiers who had fought and died to reach this moment. All the generations who had suffered in silence, waiting for their chance. "The fighting is ending," she said, "but the real work is just beginning." She was right. Peace would be harder than war, but humanity had never backed down from a challenge. They never would. The grand chamber of Ethos Prime had never been so quiet. The 12 great chairs still surrounded the central platform, but the representatives who sat in them were different now. They did not look proud or confident. They looked broken. High Arbiter Vel entered the chamber last. His steps were slow and heavy. His 4 arms hung limp at his sides. The red of his eyes had faded to something dull and tired. He had not slept in days. He had not eaten. The weight of his failure pressed down on him like a mountain. He stopped at the entrance and stared. Admiral T was sitting in the highest chair, the Arbiter's chair, the seat reserved for the leader of the Galactic conquered for 1,000 years. A human was sitting in it like he belonged there. Vel's heart hammered in his chest. He wanted to scream. He wanted to order his guards to attack, but there were no guards left. They had all been sent away. Human soldiers stood at every door, silent and watchful. "Please," T said, gesturing to a smaller chair on the floor level. "Sit down. We have much to discuss." Vel walked to the chair and sat. He felt like a prisoner in his own home. He supposed that was exactly what he was. Dr. Yuna stood beside Admiral T, holding a tablet with the peace terms. Captain Hana watched from the doorway. Lieutenant Wu had remained on the Iron Will, but his weapons were locked onto the station, ready to fire at a moment's notice. Sergeant D stood behind the Admiral, arms crossed, face unreadable. Emissary Kell was there too, sitting with the other conquered representatives. He looked nervous but hopeful. He had risked everything to make this moment possible. Now he would see if it was worth it. "The terms are simple," Dr. Yuna began. "Humanity will receive full membership in the Galactic Conquered with all rights and privileges. We will have a permanent seat on the Council with veto power over any decision that affects our people." Vel said nothing. "All territorial restrictions on human expansion are hereby abolished. We may colonize any unclaimed system we choose. We will not be required to ask permission or pay fees." Still nothing. "The protection tributes collected over the past 300 years will be returned in full. This includes all monetary payments, resources, and technology that was taken from us." A murmur ran through the conquered representatives. Those tributes had made them rich. Returning them would be financially devastating. "And finally," Yuna said, looking directly at Vel. "The High Arbiter will make a public statement. He will acknowledge that humanity is a sovereign species, equal to all others in the conquered. He will admit that the treatment of humans over the past 3 centuries was wrong." Vel's hands clenched. "You ask me to humiliate myself." Admiral T leaned forward. "I am asking you to tell the truth. There is a difference. This is not how civilized species behave. This is conquest. This is domination. You are no better than the animals we believed you to be." The words hung in the air. Everyone in the chamber held their breath. T stood slowly. He walked down from the high chair and approached Vel until they were face to face. The human was taller, broader, and stronger, but there was no anger in his eyes, only patience. "For 300 years, T said quietly, "your conquered called us animals. You made us pay for the right to exist. You treated our children as inferior to your cleaning machines. You laughed at our suffering and congratulated yourselves on your mercy." He paused. "We could have destroyed you. We could have burned Ethos Prime to ash and scattered the remains across the galaxy. We could have done to you exactly what you feared Deathworlders would do, but we did not." He stepped back. "We came to your door with the power of gods, and we offered you peace. We conquered your military and spared your civilians. We won your war and asked only for what should have been ours from the beginning, and you call us animals." Vel had no answer. "Sign the agreement," T said. "Read the statement, and pray that your grandchildren learn to be wiser than you were." The chamber was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, Vel reached for the tablet. His hands trembled as he placed his mark on the document. It was done. The other representatives signed as well, one by one. Some wept. Others stared at the floor. Emissary Kell signed with steady hands and quiet dignity. He alone seemed to understand that this was not an ending. It was a beginning. When the signing was complete, Vel stood to read the statement. His voice was thin and wavering, but the words were clear. "I, High Arbiter Vel of the Galactic Conquered, do hereby acknowledge that the species known as humanity is a sovereign and equal member of our civilization. The treatment of humans by the conquered over the past 3 centuries was unjust and wrong. We regret the pain we have caused, and we commit to building a future based on mutual respect and cooperation." The words were broadcast across every system in the conquered. Billions of beings heard them. The galaxy would never be the same. Admiral T rose to leave. The ceremony was over. There was nothing more to say, but as he passed Vel, he stopped. "You called us animals," he said softly, so only Vel could hear. "Perhaps you were right. We are animals. We are predators that clawed our way to the top of the food chain on a world that tried to kill us every single day. We are survivors of extinction events that should have ended us a dozen times over." He leaned closer. "But you forgot something important about animals. We bite, and now you know how hard." He walked out of the chamber. His officers followed. The conquered representatives sat in stunned silence, watching the humans leave. 1 year later, Dr. Yuna stood on the balcony of the human embassy on Ethos Prime. She was now Ambassador Yuna, the first official representative of humanity to the Galactic Conquered. Her office was beautiful, filled with plants from Earth and art from a dozen human colonies. She had come a long way from the nervous diplomat who had stood in this very station, watching her people be insulted. Emissary Kell, now Arbiter Kell after Vel's resignation, joined her on the balcony. He was still young by conquered standards, but his eyes held a wisdom that had not been there before. "Relations are improving," he said. "Slowly, but they are improving. Some of my people still fear humanity, but others are starting to see you differently." "And how do you see us?" Yuna asked. Kell considered the question carefully. "I see a species that could have destroyed us but chose not to. I see warriors who understand mercy. I see survivors who built something beautiful out of endless suffering." He paused. "I see hope for the future." Yuna smiled. It was more than she had expected when this all began. Far away, on a military base in the asteroid belt, Sergeant D was training conquered soldiers in hostile environment survival. The aliens struggled with exercises that human children could complete. They collapsed after short runs. They panicked when the temperature dropped. They had never known hardship, and hardship was all that D had ever known. But some of them were learning. Some of them were getting stronger, and as they improved, their fear of humanity slowly turned to respect. Death worlds forge strength, D told them. Your worlds were comfortable, so you grew soft, but strength can be learned. If you are willing to suffer, you can become more than you ever imagined. One young alien soldier asked if humans were really as dangerous as the stories said. D smiled. It was not a threatening smile. It was the smile of a teacher who genuinely wanted his students to succeed. We are exactly as dangerous as the stories say, he replied. But danger is not evil. A storm is dangerous. Fire is dangerous. They can also be beautiful and necessary. We humans have learned to control our danger. That is what makes us civilized. On the bridge of the Iron Will, Captain Hana looked out at the stars. The ship was on patrol now, moving through systems that had once been forbidden to humans. Everywhere they went, alien species watched with a mixture of fear and curiosity. The Deathworlders were no longer confined to their little corner of the galaxy. They were everywhere. Lieutenant Wu stood beside her, still young but no longer nervous. The Battle of Yilos had changed him. He had faced death and emerged stronger. "Do you think there will be more wars?" he asked. Hana considered the question. "Probably. The galaxy is vast and not everyone will accept us, but we have proven ourselves now. Anyone who thinks about attacking humanity will remember what happened to the conquered. They will think twice." "And if they do not think twice?" Hana smiled grimly. "Then they will learn the same lesson Vel learned. The same lesson every enemy of humanity has learned throughout our history. We do not give up. We do not surrender. We survive and we win." She looked at the star map, at all the systems now open to human exploration. New worlds to settle, new resources to claim, new futures to build. "The galaxy thought they knew what we were," she said. "They thought we were animals to be controlled, primitives to be managed, threats to be contained. They were wrong about all of it." She turned to face her crew, the men and women who had fought beside her through the darkest days of the war. "We are the children of Earth, the sons and daughters of a death world. We carry the fire of 1,000 generations in our blood, and now the entire galaxy knows what that means." The Iron Will flew on through the endless night, carrying the flag of humanity into a future that no one could have imagined. Behind them lay the wreckage of old prejudices and broken assumptions. Ahead lay a universe of infinite possibility. The Deathworlders had taken their place among the stars, not through cruelty or destruction, but through strength tempered by wisdom, through power guided by mercy, through a simple refusal to accept anything less than equality. Admiral T, now retired and living quietly on Earth, sometimes looked up at the night sky and wondered what would come next. New challenges, certainly. New enemies, probably. But also new friends, new discoveries, and new chapters in the endless story of humanity. They had come so far from those first uncertain steps out of their caves, from wooden boats on ancient seas to starships that crossed galaxies, from frightened primitives to masters of their own destiny. And they were just getting started. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Never underestimate a death worlder, never corner a survivor, never assume that patience means weakness. Because when humanity had finally had enough, they did not whimper or beg. They roared. And the stars themselves trembled.